Picture this for a second, 3 years ago. You were grinding at a job making $45,000 a year, living in a basic apartment, driving a car that was old enough to vote, eating ramen more often than you'd like to admit. And you remember telling yourself, if I could just hit $70,000, everything would be different. I'd finally feel comfortable. I could stop stressing about money. Well, fast forward to today, you hustled. You got the promotions, you switched jobs twice. You're now pulling in $82,000 annually. That's almost double what you made 3 years ago. You upgraded the apartment, got a decent car, started eating out like a normal human being, and yet here you are, watching a finance video at 2 a.m., feeling the exact same money anxiety you felt when you were making $45,000. Actually, if we're being brutally honest, you might be more stressed now than you were back then. Your bank account is bigger, but your peace of mind isn't, and the really insane part? You're already thinking, once I hit 6 figures, then I'll feel secure. Does this sound painfully familiar? Yeah, I thought so. My name is Mike, and I've spent an unhealthy amount of time figuring out why doubling your income somehow makes you feel broke. If you've ever hit a salary milestone only to find yourself back at financial square one emotionally, or if you're making good money but can't shake the feeling that you're still struggling, hit that subscribe button because what I'm about to explain will completely change how you see your relationship with money. The invisible machine running your life, here's what most people don't understand. What you're experiencing isn't a personal failure. You're not bad with money. You're not ungrateful. You don't have a spending problem. What's happening to you is one of the most well-documented psychological phenomena in human behavior. And it has a name, the hedonic treadmill. And once you see how this invisible machine actually works, you'll finally understand why you've been running full speed toward financial peace without ever getting any closer. More importantly, you'll learn how to get off. The hedonic treadmill, sometimes called hedonic adaptation, is basically your brain's cruel joke on your ambitions. Here's how it works. Humans are wired to adapt to both positive and negative changes in their lives. Eventually returning to a baseline level of happiness, you get a massive raise. You'll be pumped for maybe 3 months, then you're right back to baseline. You lose your job? You'll be devastated for a while, then you adapt back to roughly the same emotional state. This isn't my opinion. This is backed by decades of psychological research. There's a famous study from 1978, published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology that tracked lottery winners. These people won life-changing money, and you know what they found? 1 year later, these lottery winners were not significantly happier than people who never won anything. In some cases, they actually enjoyed everyday pleasures, less than before winning. Let that sink in for a second. People who won millions of dollars ended up getting less joy from simple things than people who stayed broke. That's not a money problem, that's a brain problem. And here's the part that should terrify you. Your brain is running this exact same program on every single raise, every promotion, every financial upgrade you've ever gotten. The adaptation period varies, but research shows that for most positive financial changes, you're looking at about 3 to 6 months before your brain completely recalibrates. That $75,000 salary that felt incredible in January? By June, it's just your salary, that new car that made you feel successful when you signed the papers. 8 months later, it's just your car. You're not even noticing it anymore. Your brain wasn't designed to stay impressed. It was designed to adapt and keep seeking more. That's how humans survived, but in modern life, it's how humans stay broke while making good money. The numbers that will break your brain. Let me hit you with some numbers because this is where it gets really disturbing. A Princeton study from 2010 analyzed over 450,000 survey responses and found that emotional well-being rises with income, but only up to about $75,000 per year. After that point, making more money had basically zero measurable impact on day-to-day happiness. Now, adjusted for inflation, that number today is around $95,000 to $100,000. But here's where it gets interesting. A more recent 2021 study from Wharton found that happiness does continue to rise past that threshold. But at a dramatically reduced rate, what does that actually mean in real terms? If going from $50,000 to $100,000 gives you, let's say, 20 units of increased happiness, going from $100,000 to $200,000 might only give you 5 additional units. You doubled your income again. You probably more than doubled your stress. You definitely doubled your work hours, and you got maybe a quarter of the emotional return. This is called diminishing marginal utility, and it's destroying your life. But nobody talks about this when they're telling you to hustle harder and grind more. The real cost of your raises, now let me show you exactly how this plays out in your actual bank account. Because abstract psychology is one thing, but watching your money disappear is another. Let's say you're 28 years old making $55,000. After taxes, you're taking home maybe $42,000, which is about $3,500 per month. Your essentials, rent, utilities, food, car, insurance, they come out to around $2,200. That leaves you with $1,300 of discretionary income. You feel tight, but you're surviving. You work hard, you get a promotion. Now you're making $75,000 after taxes. You're taking home about $57,000. Roughly $4,750 monthly. You should feel way better, right? But watch what happens. You move to a nicer apartment because you deserve it. That's an extra $400 in rent. You upgrade your car because the payment is only $200 more. You start eating out more because you're busy and successful. There's another $250. You add some subscriptions, buy nicer clothes for work. Maybe get that gym membership you never use, another $150. Suddenly your essentials and semi-essentials have jumped to $3,200. Your discretionary income? $1,550. You made $20,000 more per year and you have $250 more in monthly breathing room. That's it, but here's the kicker. That $250 doesn't feel like a win because you've already adapted to the $75,000 lifestyle. You don't feel richer, you feel exactly the same. Maybe worse because now you have more stuff to maintain and more expectations to meet. This is lifestyle inflation, and it's the physical manifestation of the hedonic treadmill eating your money. The six-figure broke person. Now here's the part that really blows my mind. According to a 2023 Bank of America report, 52% of Americans making between $100,000 and $150,000 describe themselves as living paycheck to paycheck. Read that again, over half of people making six figures, which puts them in the top 20% of earners, are financially stressed month to month. And before you say, well, that's just in expensive cities, the data controls for cost of living, this is everywhere. A 2022 PYMTS survey found that 36% of people making over $200,000 also identify as paycheck to paycheck. At some point, you have to stop blaming the economy and start looking at the psychology. These aren't people who can't afford their lives. These are people whose lives have expanded to consume every dollar available. They're running on the treadmill at maximum speed, convinced they're almost there, just a few more raises away from comfort. But the treadmill doesn't have a finish line. That's the entire design. Why more isn't the answer now, you might be thinking. Mike, I get it, the treadmill is bad. But what am I supposed to do? Never want anything better? Live like a broke college student forever? No, and this is where most finance content completely misses the point. The goal isn't to eliminate wanting things. The goal is to want things intentionally instead of automatically. There's a massive difference between upgrading your apartment because you genuinely value more space for your hobbies versus upgrading because that's what people do when they make more money. The hedonic treadmill runs on autopilot. It runs on the assumption that more equals better, that upgrades equal happiness, that your current self will finally be satisfied by the thing your past self was chasing. But that's a lie your brain tells you. Your current self has already adapted to what you have. It wants the next thing now, and your future self will adapt to that too. You cannot win this game by playing harder. You can only win by changing the rules entirely. The experience loophole. Let me tell you about something that actually works. It's called the experience gap. And researchers have consistently found that experiential purchases, things like travel, concerts, learning new skills, time with people you love, provide way more lasting happiness than material purchases. There are a few reasons this works. First, experiences are harder to adapt to because they exist as memories. You can't get used to a memory the way you get used to a couch. Second, Experiences usually involve social connection, which is one of the strongest predictors of actual well-being. Third, experiences become part of your identity in a way possessions never do. You are your adventures, your stories, your challenges overcome. You are not your car, your watch, or your square footage. A 2014 study in psychological science found that even waiting for an experience generates more happiness than waiting for a material purchase, and the positive emotions from experiences last longer after they happen. Now, here's the financial twist that nobody talks about. Experiences are often way cheaper than the material upgrades people make instead. A weekend road trip with friends costs maybe $300. The new SUV you bought, partly to justify road trips you rarely take, costs $45,000. A cooking class costs $150 and provides genuine skill and enjoyment. The kitchen renovation you did because your old kitchen wasn't Instagram worthy cost $20,000, and you stopped noticing it after 4 months. We're systematically overspending on things that provide less happiness and underspending on things that provide more. This isn't just bad psychology, it's terrible math. The arrival fallacy, here's where it gets really interesting. There's another trap within the trap called the arrival fallacy. This is the illusion that once you arrive at a certain destination, you'll be happy. Once you hit 6 figures, once you pay off your house, once you hit $1 million in net worth, once you retire. The fallacy isn't that these milestones don't matter. The fallacy is believing that happiness exists at the destination rather than in the journey. Here's what the actual research shows. People are happiest when they're making progress toward meaningful goals, not when they've achieved them. The anticipation of a vacation provides more happiness than the vacation itself. Building a business provides more satisfaction than selling it. Training for a marathon is more fulfilling than crossing the finish line. This means if you're postponing your happiness, waiting until you arrive financially to feel good, you're making a catastrophic error. You're sacrificing the journey, which is where happiness actually lives, for an arrival that will feel hollow when you get there. I've talked to people who spent 20 years grinding toward financial independence, finally hit their number, and immediately felt lost. They adapted. The goal that drove them was gone, the happiness they expected never showed up, and they realized too late that they traded their 30s and 40s for a promise their brain was never going to keep. How to actually get off the treadmills. What do you actually do with this information? How do you get off the treadmill without giving up on building wealth? Let me give you something concrete. Step 1. Create a lifestyle anchor. This is a commitment you make about how much a future raises flow into lifestyle versus investments. I recommend a 70-30 split at minimum. 70% to investments, 30% to lifestyle. So if you get a $15,000 raise, $4,500 can improve your lifestyle. $10,500 goes straight to investments. This serves 2 purposes. First, it prevents automatic lifestyle inflation. Second, the lifestyle improvements you do make feel intentional and therefore more satisfying. The key is setting this rule when you're thinking clearly, not in the moment when you're excited about a raise and already mentally spending it. Step 2. Practice negative visualization. This sounds depressing, but it's actually liberating. Stoic philosophers have done this for 2,000 years. The idea is to regularly imagine losing what you currently have, your apartment, your job, your car, your relationships. Not to make yourself miserable, but to break the adaptation that makes you take everything for granted. Studies show this practice increases gratitude without requiring any external change. You don't need more money to feel richer. You need to stop adapting to what you already have. Try this once a week. Take 10 minutes to vividly imagine losing your job and going back to whatever you earned 3 years ago. Feel that anxiety, then open your eyes and realize you still have what you have. That gap between imagined loss and current reality is where gratitude lives. And gratitude is one of the only known antidotes to hedonic adaptation. Step 3. Optimize for time, not money. This is where people get it completely backwards. They sacrifice time to earn money, then spend that money on conveniences that save tiny amounts of time, never realizing the trade is deeply unfavorable. A 2017 study found that people who spent money on time-saving purchases reported way more life satisfaction than those who spent on material goods. But here's the key insight. The ultimate time-saving purchase is having enough money that you don't need to work for more. Every dollar you invest instead of spending is a dollar that eventually buys back hours of your life. At a 4% withdrawal rate, every $25 you invest generates $1 of annual passive income. Do that for 10 to 15 years while compound interest works and you've bought yourself a part-time job's worth of income you never have to work for. You're not stepping off the treadmill by killing your ambition. You're redirecting it instead of running faster to buy more stuff you'll adapt to. You're running to buy your time back. That's a race with an actual finish line. The real message: look, the hedonic treadmill isn't evil. It's actually a survival mechanism that helped our ancestors stay motivated in a world of genuine scarcity. The problem is we're running ancient software in a world of artificial abundance, surrounded by advertising designed to exploit our exact psychological vulnerabilities. Every ad, every Instagram post, every commercial is trying to convince you that you're not quite there yet. That happiness is one purchase away, and your brain, with its built-in tendency to adapt to everything good that's ever happened, makes this lie feel true even when you know it's not. You're not broken for feeling this way, you're human. But being human also means you have the capacity to recognize your programming and choose differently. You can decide that enough is a number, not a feeling. You can track your lifestyle creep and consciously resist it. You can invest in experiences over things, in time over money and progress over arrival. You can step off the treadmill not because you've given up on success, but because you've realized success was never waiting at the end of an endless run. It was in learning to walk away from a race that was never designed to be won. If this video changed how you see your relationship with money, subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me what you're making now versus what you were making 3 years ago, and whether you actually feel the difference. Let's talk about this honestly. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.